presentation slide up. So if you'll give me a second
I got it right here.
Are you going to present?
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah, but Cheryl and I talked about this earlier, but we're going to slow it down just a second. And as we ground ourselves in what the evening is going to bring us, which is a lot of good information, but it may be some heavy information for families as we're talking about a topic that could bring some anxiety. And that is perhaps maybe our intention, maybe not. You're coming in wherever you are. But we always think it's important to have some gratitude around anything that we do. So one of the things that we're going to invite you to do is in the chat is just share something you're grateful for today.
Sunshine, absolutely.
Absolutely. Warmer weather, we'll take it.
Yes, we love sunshine. Electricity, yes.
Absolutely.
Power, community. Yes.
Thank you, Donna.
Technology, yeah, it's able to bring us together. No snow, yes, 100%. Melting snow, yes, love that. And we're happy to have you here, Mrs. Iyer. And that's always a plus, Mrs. Kroon.
Cheryl, can you go to the next slide?
Yep, the cat can come also. Let's see. Yes. Hold, please. Sorry. All right.
Can you see? One more.
All right. Attitude of gratitude. We just talked about that. Sir. Okay. Here we're going to start with that. So this is just going to be a quick introduction in case you don't know what SIR is. And what is SIR? Mr. Clayton is not on a power trip, but he is amazing at Instagram. Little plug here, Mr. Clayton and the Davis Center did just win a prize through FCPS for being the best school Instagram in the county. So yay on that.
One of them. Thank you for that. Thank you.
One of them. So yes, so you might have heard your student talking about SIR. And do any of you guys know what SIR is? If you do, tell us what it means to you and what it means to your student. So we're going to give you a second to do that.
We're trying to give you these opportunities to be interactive here, folks. So come on, give us what you know.
We know you know something. Nothing?
Space.
All right. We're going to come back. So this isn't the end of it. So
thank you, Ms. Iyer.
So here, this is exactly when we talk about SIR. SIR stands for safety, independence, and respect. And as you can see on this chart, there's various ways that students can exemplify these behaviors and get tickets for them. And we're going to talk about that, like including keeping their personal space, being able to advocate for themselves, using positive language. Those are just one of the things of each SIR certificate. So what does safety look like? It means, like we talked about, keeping your personal space, having a calm body, using a quiet voice, because sometimes that's hard because we get a little excited about things, not sharing your personal information with people, especially people that you don't know, and communicating with only people that you know, because it's easy to get wrapped up in a conversation and we don't want to see anything like that. Independence. Independence is great, and that's what we love our students to show their skills in. And independence looks like being able to self-advocate for their own needs, because they have needs and they know their needs better than us some days, and being able to talk about it and keeping track of their belongings, backpacks, coats, things like that. Also helping by using alarms to help them remind them of when they need to do something or to keep them on task of what they're doing, and being where they need to be on time. That all is independence. So those are great things that our students work on every day. And then our final one, respect. Using some instances of respect are using positive and appropriate language, treating their belongings with care, not throwing their backpacks down the hallway, using a quiet voice where they need to, being mindful of others, and keeping their phones away in class and in work time. Those are also things that show respect that they can earn tickets for. So then what happens? Tickets, these are great. This is what a SIR ticket looks like. And any staff member here at DCC is able to pass out tickets to a student when they see them exhibiting one of the SIR expectations in either school or at the work site. So it's not just while they're in the building. We expect the same things of them at school, at the work site. So they're able to also be recognized there. And this is great. I love this. This is a Friday favorite, and it gets a little loud and rowdy sometimes. Not rowdy, just loud. What happens with the SIR tickets that are given out each week? Students who earn SIR tickets, they're all entered into a drawing each week, and they're recognized as Student Star of the Week for each one of the SIR. And there's 3 winners that are drawn in each category every week. So all of the 9 winners are announced over the public announcement system, and we celebrate with photos on Friday mornings, notices to families, posts to our Instagram, and we have our wall of fame on the hallway main bulletin board that everybody gets to see every day. So we do that on Fridays, and it's a great time. Okay. And also, where as we move into conversations about housing and what that can look like in the future and things like that, we want to talk about how would you be able to help your student or recognize when they're doing things at home that are all safe, independent, and respectful in the home. Like, how would you recognize that? And what would your student be doing to identify one of those things? So we encourage at home, because we all know that students are, when things are continuous across the board, they are more successful and they get their routines down and things like that. So as staff members here at DCC, we encourage you guys, families, to use SIR as a framework for your conversations at home. It could be something like, hey, do you think that's safe if you put your hand on the stove? Those are things like that. And let us know these things that they're doing at home, because sometimes there's things that go on at home and things that go on at school, and we excuse me, don't get to necessarily know about them, but we want to be able to share those wins at school too. And also with your student, when they're doing these great things, you can share an in-person or a virtual high five through their cell phone. We all know they have their phones glued to them, and may not want to come out to where you are to meet up with you. So virtual high five, or even the same thing when they've done something independently and you haven't had to ask them, like parents have a million times, to do something. And what could your reward system at home look like to help your student focus on one specific skill each week. So you don't have to go into this 1,000 miles an hour, but maybe focusing on one thing each week. That's a great start. And as Mr. Clayton always says, remember, we go slow to go fast.
So Cheryl, before we move on to the next slide, if you'll go back one more, we wanted to share this with everyone tonight just because, SIR, what we do with this is part of our multi-tier system of support here at school. So it is something we widely recognize throughout the building. Teachers, students, all staff are familiar with this. And thinking forward, especially in relation to what we'll be talking about in just a moment, it is important. I call this adulting at home, right, in the context of what we're sharing. And as you may have challenges or successes outside of the school building, we worked really a couple of years on coming up with something that may seem simple, SIR, safety, independence, respect, but really has a lot of deep thought in it and how we approach that grid that we showed you at first, because we really had to think across a spectrum of learners here in the building. So if you need a framework, if you need something to lean into, really talk about this, bring it up with students. One of the things we hear is, what do we talk about at home? What did you do? Ask students about SIR, do something along those lines, and see what they might share with you. You might be surprised. We might be surprised some of the feedback we get, but just wanted to make sure we were sharing this with you, and we'll continue to share things with you. See it on Instagram, give you a little more context for how this might apply outside of school, as well as what we're doing here in the building. But would love to hear any feedback you might get to help us just be better at what we think we're doing a pretty good job at, but there's always room for improvement. And Cheryl's right, I do love to remind myself that it's important to go slow to go fast. Even though I know that I want to gallop along, but I got to remember we're all doing our best to get there. And along those lines, I'm going to stop talking and I'll give it back to Cheryl to introduce us to what we're really here to talk about tonight, because we all have to adult and get to tonight's main topic.
Great, thank you. All right, so tonight we are going to, we're going to talk about what we're here for, housing opportunities and opportunities for families. And like I said, we have 3 special guests tonight: Donna Budway, Margot Greenlay, and Jeannie Cummings. And they are going to take us on this journey. So get your pens and paper ready, because I'm going to turn this over to them.
Well, but before we do that, Cheryl, I was just looking, and we do have a couple of slides to do a little warm up. So if you go to the next slide.
All right. Sorry, I skipped over those. So
Donna, we got to give you an intro. So
love it.
So tell us, drop a comment in the chat, or send a private message if you don't feel comfortable with it. On a scale, what are your thoughts? I'll miss him, but he needs to go. I'm here, aren't I? To not my baby. How comfortable are you with the thought of your student living away from you? There's no wrong answers, and all feelings are valid. So I'd love to hear what you're thinking in the chat, if you're going to share. And this photo was taken the day that Mr. Clayton was recognized as the social media king of Davis. So congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. And so before we introduce some of our guests, I sent out a questionnaire and I asked parents, like, what is your burning question? And what do you hope to have answered tonight? So these are some of the questions. And if these were, I'd like to hear in the chat, what is your main question? Because we had a lot of great questions and concerns out there, but there's definitely a lot more. So if you wonder what kind of people could my son or daughter be living with, if that's one of your biggest concerns, drop a 1 in the chat. If you could be caring, Who could be caring for my young adult when they move out of the home? Great question. Drop a 2 in the chat if that's one of your biggest concerns. What oversight or support is offered in different housing opportunities? That's a great question because nobody wants to be isolated and things like that. We're going to talk about that. So put a 3 in the chat if that is one of your burning questions. If my son or daughter moves out, how involved am I going to be allowed to be? Some people may think that they don't have any rights, but if that's one of your big questions, drop a 4 in the chat. What opportunities are out there? Are they safe? Drop a 5. And is my child eligible for supportive housing options? And if so, where do we start? And if that's one of your biggest questions, put that in the chat because we are going to work through all of these questions.
No pressure, Donna. No pressure, Jeannie.
And now we have, drum roll, our special guest, Donna, Jean, and Margot. So I will pass along the slides if you just want to take it over from there, ladies.
All right, perfect. Maybe what I'll do is introduce myself real quick, and then I'll have Jeannie and Margot say a thing, and then we'll just get started. We're going to make this kind of a team effort, but I should start that. And I love that. That was a great question. I really could have appreciated if someone had done that for me 8 years ago, but that's all right. Better late than never. But my name is Donna Budway, and our daughter Emma moved into the very first OSG property about going on our 7th year. And the thing that I have to tell you right from the get-go is that our daughter has very high support needs. And she is not the person who typically you would have thought of moving outside of the family home. And like many of you, our family's biggest concern was what was going to happen to her after we left this earth. So I've got exciting updates for you, but just to know that I've been with the organization from the beginning, and also I am a parent and I've been in your shoes. So let me pass it on to Jeannie, and then we'll tee it off to Margot.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeannie Cummins, and I am the Housing Operations Coordinator with the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. And so I've spent the better part of the last 10 years working on how to create housing opportunities or opportunities for people with developmental disabilities to live in housing, that the same type of housing, mostly rental housing, that everybody else lives in the state of Virginia. And so we've been working on creating different sorts of resources that can be used to help put together a customized housing and living arrangement for your sons and daughters. So that I'll leave it at that, and then pass it to Margot, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, hi everyone. Really great to be here tonight, and thank you so much for that warm-up. Those warm-up activities were really helpful. So it's lovely to be here with the community. I am the executive director of our stomping ground. So what you learn about OSG tonight, if you have any kind of follow-up questions, you can absolutely be in touch with me. I will say, and I'm sure Donna will repeat this, that we would love to have all of you start to join us at our events, which are free. We have all sorts of great social activities, physical events, like, we take nature walks and neighborhood walks. We get together for art and going out for simple dinners, that kind of thing. One of the, I would love to just have you come and join us so that you start to build out your community of friends and fellow parents and caregiver contacts. That way you have a great community of people already around you, and that'll take you into your future beyond high school, no matter what. We are here.
Thanks, Margot. So hence the title. What we're really going to start, not to scare you, we need you all to start with building your community. And we are going to make an argument tonight, we hope very compelling, that that will be an abundant community and it'll be an inclusive community. And we're going to bring in a lot of people with us. All right, Cheryl, next slide. I'm going to start with our mission statement. And I should say, like Margot said, we are all here to help. And no matter how scared you are, this is a very, very exciting time. I was pretty sure that when our daughter exited the school district, that it was all going to go downhill. But I have to say, for her and for her friends, in a lot of ways, it became the beginning of her life. I mean, that cliff for us was more like a parasail, because finally she was living her more self-determined life, where people could get to learn her and we could really see what her life was going to look like. So as scary as it is, I promise you it can be a pretty amazing journey. So we can read the mission: to build inclusive communities and strengthen neighborhoods through diverse programming, sustainable, affordable housing, and social spaces for people of all abilities. So our nonprofit, we are solely in affordable housing, 100% affordable housing properties. That's very important to us and our mission. But it's important for me to say that we are never going to be the solution for everyone's housing. I mean, it's just, not impossible. Though we've housed about 60 people in the Northern Virginia area, the truth of the matter is some of our friends are going to be in their family homes. Some of our friends are going to be in group homes. Some of our friends, their families are going to choose to live near one of our properties. But the important thing is to build the community and start figuring all of this out. And probably the best gateway drug to independence is to have friends and be doing more and more things on your own. Okay, next slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
We do operate under the Housing First model, and this is important because I know for a lot of us, you're thinking, and I saw in your questions that we're wondering, like, when does this happen and when are we ready? And I know for our family, we're completely overwhelmed by the activities of daily living. Like, I had this idea that Emma had to be quiet. Emma needed to be making her own meals. Emma needed to be, completely doing her dental work. She needed to be taking her own meds. She needed to be doing everything. But what the Housing First model promises is that we will house somebody first, the goal of the Housing First model, and then we will add supports. And for those of you who are on the waiver wait list, or if you've already received the waiver, all of that support will be part of that scaffolding to help your child gain these skills. And there may be some skills that they may never acquire, and that is okay. But that does not mean that they shouldn't live their most self-determined and mission-driven life. And that's the type of thing we're going to help you do. I meant to update this, but we have about 120 hours of free programming every month. A lot of it, you'll see at the end, we'll have a link for our schedule. You can look on actually, Margo, maybe drop that even into the chat to our.
I just did.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Our events page, and just see that there's so much that's accessible throughout the county. And for some of our friends, it might be nice to start with virtual activities. We have some, nice drop-ins, and we have a social justice group and a book club. And during some of this stormy weather, they've just gotten on to do some fun social things. And you can kind of see from this picture, we have yoga. We usually have an art therapist, usually from George Washington University. We've had a lot of different relationships. We're getting ready to launch this spring our new semester of Health Matters. So if you're thinking ahead for how could my child be ready, whether they're going to community college or work or an apartment or whatever they're doing, are they eating healthy meals? Have they figured out what they're going to do with their stress level? Are they going to be able to get their exercise? Can they do what they need to do to be safe on the internet? So it's a wonderful program that we offer free each spring with George Washington University, usually graduate students from their MPH program, their Masters of Public Health program. Okay, next slide, please. I should say with that programming picture, sorry, just a second. Really, I would say diving into programming is going to be the thing we're going to ask you all to do. I mean, I think most people, and a lot of these events are in or around, you can keep that up, Cheryl, are in or around these properties that we have. And everything is open to everyone. There's some things that we have, just there may be some constraints, whatever they're going to a certain museum and we've got certain slots, or we have tickets to, the Mystics or something, and we might have just gotten a certain number of tickets. But for the most part, we are pretty generous about how many people can come to our events. So I should probably take a second and point out for you, we have 3 properties in Arlington, but probably the farthest west property, for those of you in Fairfax County, would be the Cadence. It's right on Route 50, just east of Seven Corners. But then the Arden is near the Huntington Metro. The Robinson is near George Mason University, so there's a lot of exciting opportunity there. The Ovation at Arrowbrook is that one of the last metro stop before the airport. And that's really a Herndon address for those of you that are out there. And the Waypoint, that probably isn't any of you because that's City of Alexandria. And then Queens Court and the Cadence are both Arlington. But any of these activities, and we have a pretty robust schedule for the weekends. Margot does a great movement class on Saturdays, the first Saturday of every month, which will be next Saturday. Excuse me, not this Saturday. It'll be, I think it's March 7th. We're always at Huntley Meadows at 10 a.m. And a lot of these opportunities, we would encourage the family to come. So if mom and dad come or a caregiver comes, you could be talking to other parents. You can ask your questions about waiver, guardianship, whatever it is, living in, programming. It's just a great way to learn more and get confidence about what's going on. This might be a good time for Jeannie to kind of jump in when we're talking about the properties. And let's just talk specifically about how would you, if you wanted to get into one of these properties or wanted to be considered, what would you do? That's a fine slide to keep up there, Cheryl. Jeannie, will punch it back to you for a sec.
All right, sounds good. So, so basically, in order to get into these properties, that Donna is referring to, these are called tax credit properties. And basically the tax credit is a way that the properties get financed for affordable housing. And in exchange for basically making the rents very low, they, and a few other requirements, they have to, they get equity financing so that they can build the housing. But one of the requirements is that they have to keep the rents affordable. They're still not quite affordable enough to most of our folks, especially folks who are on like SSI, supplemental security income. So people generally are going to need rent assistance to live at one of these properties. But these properties are also required to offer what we call a leasing preference to people with developmental disabilities who are in the target population. And that leasing preference basically means that when a unit becomes available at the property has to make and offer that unit first to people with developmental disabilities and people with serious mental illness who need permanent supportive housing. And then if nobody is interested in filling that, applying for that unit, then they will open the application process up to the general public. So that's a really big deal because many of these properties, the moment that a unit becomes available, they've got, 10, 20 applicants for one unit. So if a person with a developmental disability can rise to the top of that 20 people and be the first one to be considered, that's actually a huge benefit. So that's kind of how these properties work. But the important thing to know is that you have to have rent assistance in order to be able to qualify to be bumped up to that top priority consideration and to apply first for the unit. So the rent assistance typically is coming from the State Rental Assistance Program. We call it SRAP. And what SRAP does is it provides a subsidy so that a person only has to pay 30%, about 30 to 40% of their monthly income toward rent. With they get to, toward their rent and utilities. And then the subsidy will pay the difference up to a maximum rent level. All of these properties have units that are within that maximum rent level. So that's the other good part about these properties. They are not market rent properties. They're going to have rents that are slightly below market and typically affordable to people who have rental assistance. So how do you get access to the rent assistance? Well, again, you have to be a person with developmental disabilities. You have to be on the receiving Medicaid waiver, a Medicaid waiver for people with developmental disabilities, or be on the Medicaid waiver wait list. And if you're not familiar with the waiver, that is a Medicaid funding source for long-term home and community-based services for people with developmental disabilities. So you have to meet the requirements for that funding, for that waiver, in order to be considered for the rent assistance and in order to be considered for one of these units. The whole process starts with your support coordinator. Support coordinator typically at the Community Services Board. Some people have a support coordinator through a private agency like the ARC of Northern Virginia. That's the person you need to talk to if an individual is interested in getting on a list to get rent assistance and then being able to access one of these properties. Unfortunately, there are wait lists for the rent assistance right now, almost everywhere in Northern Virginia. About the only place in Northern Virginia that does not have a wait list is, let me see if I can find it. Prince William County has a couple of slots left. So there are bills in the General Assembly right now to try to increase the funding for the state rental assistance program. And if those pass, then we may have an opportunity to be able to add a few slots. But otherwise, the wait list basically operates on turnover. So if somebody leaves the rental assistance program, a slot becomes available, and we have a priority system for picking the next person who will be able to apply for that rental assistance slot. But it's important to still get on the wait list for the rental assistance anyways, because that way you're positioned to be able to pretty quickly be considered. So that's basically it. Step one, reach out to your DD, your Developmental Disability Support Coordinator at the Community Services Board, or an agency like the ARC of Northern Virginia that does support coordination. Step two, tell them you would like to be like to have a housing referral for the state rental assistance program. And then step three is going to be, you're going to wait a little while until your name comes up, the individual's name comes up on the wait list. And then once they can apply for and get approved for the rental assistance, then they can start looking at vacancies in some of these properties. Back to you, Donna.
Yeah, this might be a good time to say, Jeannie, I saw it was a couple of questions families had. It was one of the frequent flyer questions was, if your roommate, if you were to have a roommate or a live-in aide, and that will all go, but going back to that housing first, my daughter's support needs are sufficient that a part of her accommodation to live in this kind of inclusive housing is for her to have a live-in aide who lives rent-free, with the agreement that she will, if there was a fire in the middle of the night, she would keep Emma safe. She would get her out. She gets her up and ready for activities in the morning. She makes sure she's taken her meds. She makes sure, she's had her snack, that she's safe. Like, they do fun things together. She'll go to different OSG events with us. So depending on your child's support needs, they may or may not qualify. But even if they don't qualify, we have some friends actually with very high support needs that actually moved in from a group home. But those families, the adults are older and their parents are older. In some cases, they are predeceased. Is that they have been contracted with an agency to be kind of that, instead of having a live-in aide, where you may have problems with not everyone, we all know this, the older we get, the less fun it can be sometimes to have a roommate, that they're living in community, but their support doesn't live in their apartment. So there are a number of agencies that people in Northern Virginia are using, and then they always have someone on the property 24/7 and then help navigate, making sure they get to their day programs or to their work, or making sure if they know OSG is having an event downstairs that they're prompting them, and we're all working together. So we do have individuals with high support needs living in our properties, but most of them, either they have the live-in aid accommodation, or they have they're with an agency who is kind of doing that support. But we also have friends that are two people with disability that have chosen to live together. And that we've had some great success with that as well. And the nice thing about that, sometimes those relationships can last longer. I can tell you for our family, we've had an incredible amount of success. We've had amazing roommates, but they've kind of been students. So we've had, whatever, someone finishes their fellowship at Children's Hospital, and that was a year and a half. So they've been a little bit short-termers. We're on our fourth now, but this one's getting her PhD and could be here for 6 years. So, that's something else to be thinking about. And if you are thinking about this move, you're not only trying to think about who your adult child is going to live with, but if you have people in your child's life that they go to, they're at soccer camp together, or they work together, or they have a movie night together, and they already are really involved and the parents are engaged with each other, that would be a person that you would want to take along this journey with you. I'm not sure. Well, Jeannie, I couldn't have done it without Jeannie convincing me that our loud and wonderful daughter was appropriate to go on this adventure. But if I hadn't been able to talk two of my daughter's closest friends, those families, into moving in with us, and because we were the first ones in the buildings, part of their accommodation, they put them together. And my kind of noisier daughter, who's much less noisy after 6 years in community living, they had her on the bottom floor. So if she was stomping, she wouldn't bother any of her neighbors. And as it turns out, after all that planning, the family that moved in on the other side of Emma has an autistic 10-year-old. So I can hear them, they can hear us. We're all very happy. So there's a lot of ways to figure this out. Okay, next slide. And we don't really need to dwell on the next slide. I can tell you, I said all of our properties that we're supporting are affordable housing properties. They are beautiful. And the community we are building is beautiful. But for the most part, I will tell you, they're all very urban, and they're all on public transportation. And that is super exciting. We had a friend from Herndon who lives out at the Herndon property join us for a swimming activity. He joins us on Tuesday, Thursday. And it was so cute to see him walking toward the Pentagon with his phone out. He took public transportation all the way to Crystal City to meet us at the pool. So just as they're growing and they're meeting friends and they have places to go, that individual has a great job, but it's just 2 days a week. And so he's filling in the rest of his days with these kind of OSG events and activities. Okay, next slide, please, Cheryl. All right, so I kind of just touched on this, finding and building your community. Everyone, if you're scared, let's do this together. Let's make ourselves as comfortable with this idea as soon as possible. So start thinking about who you're going to take along on this journey with you. Who would your child love to have as a neighbor or near you? Who else can you talk into this adventure? And start thinking now. You're so lucky to be at the Davis Center, but you're exploring all these different things. We really encourage our families to try to help your child find what their purpose is going to be. And that's going to help a lot of this come together. Is there some community service they should be doing? Do they love art? Do they love dance? Do they love to swim? Do they love film? Like, how are you going to, most of our friends are not going to be working 40 hours a week, right? So what does the rest of their life going to look like? And what is that purpose-driven life going to look like? If they are going to live a self-determined life, which we know is what brings most of us joy, what is it that's going to bring them joy? And so in this period you have right now, this very exciting period, you're going to help them figure that out. And of course, we always want you thinking about the future. Jeannie and I talked about this the other day, like, you can tell your caseworker you are considering, you want your child to be considered for employment and housing. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, when we find the job, when we get the funding for the rent supports, but constantly be going toward the next step. I mean, just keep moving yourself and your community forward. All right, Cheryl, next slide. This is my favorite slide. This is an Arlington Supper Club that sometimes we had to move out of restaurants, although restaurants usually like that we could fill up their whole restaurant, but we can sometimes have 60 people at a supper club. And it is such an easy way to try OSG out, because you can see there's some parents here, there's caregivers, there's aides, there's friends that already live in their apartments. There's people that are thinking about living in their own apartments, but you can see the joy on our friends' faces. Like, people are finding their people. And each of our communities, Alexandria, Arlington, Fairfax, Alexandria City, and Fairfax County. Herndon has one tonight, actually. They all have these monthly separate clubs. Margo, you jumped in. You want to say something about our fun separate clubs? Oops, I think Kurt.
Margo, you are muted.
Thank you. I was trying to be quiet and then I was too quiet. I know we're going to go back and look at the chat questions in just a moment, but I did want to answer the one somebody, Tanya, was asking, what does it mean by who are you taking with you on your journey? And I would love to jump in here and just say when Donna's daughter moved into Gilliam Place, which is in Arlington, Emma was moving in with her good buddy Ben and her other good buddy Juan. They had grown up together in the school system. The parents knew each other. They were like a really tight pod. And so if you have buddies in your Davis Discovery in your high school setting, there's no like band together now. And if you have, especially if you have a similar vision of the future, it's like, yeah, we want to go do this thing, then it's always great to carry some of that, connectivity and good, strong relationships and friendships with you post high school. And you can decide together, you know what, we want to try to be roommates. We want to try to be roommates. We're going to go see if we can figure out, an apartment situation together, or maybe only one of you wants to do that, but you're going to stay connected and the other is going to go visit you and you're still going to go back and forth between each other's homes or apartments. So it's great to imagine a possible future. And so that's what we mean by who is going to go with you on the journey. Yeah, that's some good shortcut, but does that help make sense, Tanya? Yeah. So let's see who their roommates are going to be. I would say there's such a difference between, living at home with our parents and then making that big first step to the next way to live. And just a quick example, we had two friends move in together and they had a couple really good years at the Arden. And then one of them decided, you know what, I need to live closer to work. He's actually a teaching assistant. And so he found another roommate, so this is all part of the evolution of life, and you can't know too many, like, how do you know, right? But you can decide, like, I want to give this a try. This is a first choice. Nothing is reversible. Nothing is forever, but this is a normal evolution of growing up and becoming your next best self. So that's what I'll say about that.
Margo, I really appreciate you saying this because I heard in this great research team in the UK, and they're saying, it's only for people with disabilities because it's so hard to get a person with a disability housed that a lot of times we're like, okay, we did it. This is it. I mean, that's crazy. Can you imagine if you all still lived in the same place you lived in, whatever freshman year of college or fill in the blank, and you never moved out of that place again? Like, our kids are going to be the same way. Like, they're going to try something, they're going to like it, their roommate's too noisy, whatever, they're going to try something else. They want to live in a different building, they have different friends. So you're just going to try this. You're going to, you're going to visit these properties, you're going to go to these events. And part of building the community is not necessarily even figuring out who you're going to live with and who you're just going to be friends with. And this is a transient area. If you're on this call and you're like, we don't know who those people are, well, this is your invitation to come to us and to each other and start figuring that out. And we will help you figure it out very, very organically. But we're going to try to help you find your people. And they may not all be at Davis. I mean, can you imagine if your friends for the rest of your life were all your high school friends? I mean, so we're going to take a long view of this. All right, Cheryl, next slide. And at some point, we'll just go to questions and we won't keep going through here. In fact, the one thing I will say, and then we'll go to the next slide, talk a little bit about dignity at risk. When we're talking about what it was like, think of all of us parents. Like, when you went to college, your parents were worried. You may decide to have some crazy major. You may decide that you were gonna, quit shaving your legs, and you were gonna drink too much, and you weren't gonna go to all your classes. And your parents kind of stayed out of it a little bit. I mean, that that risk that we all took, which is a absolutely typical and important next step for every individual's development. Sometimes for people with disability, we are so afraid. I mean, that whole safety thing, we're just so trying to keep our young adults safe. I wanted to keep my daughter safe. She's an unreliable speaker. She has seizures. She can elope. There's all these things, all these reasons why she shouldn't have moved out of the family house. But if we hadn't have given her that dignity of risk, she wouldn't have grown. She wouldn't have had the opportunities she has. She wouldn't have the friends she has now. I mean, she lives in a property with 173 units. 500 people live here. If the electricity goes out, I will get texts from neighbors that are like, is Emma okay? She has, for an unreliable speaker to have this many people for the first time in her life, know her, care about her, love her. I mean, it isn't going to happen any other way. I mean, it's pretty dramatic. All right, next slide. Margot, keep reading those questions to me. Our next slide, because we're going to do this fast. This is an important thing. I should just say we're going to do a lot of community building. We've hired these amazing community builders for each of our, for Fairfax, Alexandria, Arlington. They're amazing. Come out and meet them. But also to understand that we do this amazing work with our internship pipeline. So we have OTs, sometimes PTs, art therapists, social workers from George Mason University. We are going to fill your young person's life with so many amazing people. And we're really proud of this because not only is it enhancing our programming and the lives of our young adults, but we also feel like we are training the professionals of the future. So they are going to understand these issues around housing, that are going to understand these issues around community. They're going to better understand these diagnoses, and they're going to better understand dignity of risk, self-determination, all of that. So we're really proud of that work. All right, next slide. All right, key takeaways. I want everyone, if nothing else tonight, everyone has a right to be housed. Absolutely everyone, with the appropriate supports. So what you need to start thinking is kind of push yourself, your comfort level a little bit, but realizing with the appropriate supports, your loved one could thrive in one of these communities. And really, by dismantling ableism, like this idea that we need to do everything for our children, we're going to have to let that go a little bit. And you don't need to reinvent the wheel, all right? When you're these questions about who is going to be my child's roommate, talk to these parents that have already recruited. I mean, I've had PhD students. I've had, people with a lot of student debt that had to take a break, but were really trying to find their purpose in life and thought maybe they wanted to be a social worker. Someone went on to be an OT. Like, we will help you. You need to start talking to everyone you know about this. But most importantly, this is going to be fun. We want this to be the most exciting and successful time of your child's life. You are so fortunate to have the resources you have at the Davis Center. So let's just expand what your weekends and evenings and your friends, your circle of supports look like, and go a little bit from there. Next slide, and then we should look at those questions before we run out of time. This is just our contact. Margot had saved. I would really encourage everybody. You can either email us and we will put you on that list, or you can go to our website and sign up for the Sunday email, which is amazing, because then you'll just see everything that's happening in the week. Oh, Chad, I love that. Say that to me. My thing went away.
Donna, I just love to put in, I love the term dignity of risk. I mean, it says so much, but another term that I love, that I've latched onto from our friends over in Multilingual Learners is that idea of rightful presence. We have the right to be present. And so we want to embrace that thinking in all the work that you all are certainly doing in the community. But, we do that every day here at Davis by going out into the community, and, our stomping grounds is certainly an extension of that. And then, Jeannie, the work that you're doing in housing, I mean, it just spreads everywhere. So, I love that there's so much, it just does this. But rightful presence just speaks to my heart, for so much of what we do together. So I just wanted to throw that into the chat there.
No, I really love that. And, for a lot of our young adults, especially our friends with higher support needs, they have, the community does not know them. They've been segregated in their faith settings, in their academic settings. They're not integrated in their after school activities. So when you come into these communities, people maybe have never met someone with Tourette's, or, you know, whatever, fill in the blank, someone, you know, who spells to communicate, or maybe never really known anyone in a wheelchair, whatever it is. We're all going to come together and we're going to learn together. One of the really exciting things about our work is that all of our programming is available free to everyone in the building. So we are supporting each other, and we're educating each other, and we're becoming family, we're becoming community, and we're leaning on each other. You know, when COVID happened, basically everyone left the building, but we were all still here. So we were building relationships and getting to know our neighbors and kind of taking care of each other. And that is something beautiful that happens in these properties. Yes, Margot.
Yeah, I was going to say that at the COVID moment, the on-site building staff left, but Donna and Emma and Ben and Juan and all, you know, those families were there and really became the core of the community. I put our website address in the chat because unfortunately that QR code isn't working tonight. So please use that. And I think maybe it was Teresa was wondering earlier, if a CSB support coordinator pushes back on a student or family getting on the SRAP waitlist, what do you advise? Maybe this needs to come from Jeannie.
So I guess I would probe a little to kind of get a better understanding of what the circumstances are that are resulting in the pushback and what the support coordinator's rationale are. Where are they coming from? Because you generally want your support coordinator to be supportive of your choices, right? Just like Donna was saying, in terms of dignity of risk. But every situation is very individual, so that it's really difficult to kind of know how to respond without knowing more about the situation. And I don't know that you want to give me more information about that right now.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Just so my question is, so of course I'm the ETR Davis, so I sit in on transition meetings and housing comes up. And what I have heard from support coordinators is they kind of state that SRAP isn't really an option for everybody. So I have heard support coordinators kind of say to families, like, your student will have to have a extensive work history to qualify for SRAP. It's a very long wait list, kind of making it sound like it's not even worth it.
Yeah.
So my question
That's
is, how
helpful.
can I advocate better with the CSB based on this information to say, actually, they do have a right for this. So how do we make this happen?
Thank you. That context is very helpful.
Well, and I will say, Teresa, one of the things that OSG and others around the state are advocating for very strongly at the state level right now, because of all the budget work going on, is an increase in that state rental assistance program. We desperately need more money. We've got in this area, we have almost 100 apartment units that have that DD preference, but we don't have the funding to go along with them. One of the really important ways for the state level, government folks to understand the need is for parents and individuals to ask for it. If people don't ask, the government side of things is going to think, oh, people don't want it. So yes, definitely advocate, ask for it so that we can get that interest registered at the state level.
Yeah. Thank you, Margot. Margot can say that because I can't. But that number one is very true. That the advocacy is critical, because this is a population that won't be a rightful presence, that won't be seen unless they make themselves seen.
That's right, Jeannie. Rightful presence. Take it and run with it.
There you go. So but as it relates to your comment, Teresa, about being told that there's you have to have an extensive work history, I would really question that, because the rental assistance program does not require that you have any work history. The rental assistance program doesn't require that you have any income. Now, practically speaking, that's not a good idea, because it's really, part of the prep work that you can do while somebody is on this wait list that could take, we can't give you any information about how long or short it is, because it doesn't go by first come, first serve. It goes by priorities. So somebody who comes, and I can get into that in a little bit, but the crux of the issue is that there's no way to tell you how long somebody will be waiting. But my suggestion is use your time wisely, get on the wait list, and then use your time wisely while you're waiting. So number one, use your time wisely to make sure that if the individual could be potentially eligible for SSI, they need to apply for that. And that's another whole different workshop, but they're probably going to end up applying, being rejected, appealing, being rejected, and appealing again before they're going to even get SSI. So you got lots of time now to be able to go do that. And having that funding or having that benefit, that payment, and or working toward actually getting a part-time job or something more, that money that income is going to be really critical, because even if the rental assistance were going to pay for 100% of your rent and 100% of your utilities, the person still has to be able to pay for their food. They have to pay for their transportation. They have to pay for their personal care supplies, their household supplies, their internet, their cable, their phone, whatever. So there's got to be funding other than SRAP that is going to be able to be used. And one of the first things that we tell people is you need to build a budget. So, that way, that even if you have rent assistance, you'll still be able to afford all of your other personal expenses that anybody who lives independently has to cover. So no, it is not true that a person has to have income, whether that's through a job or some other source. But it's not a requirement, but it is a good idea. So my pushback to the support coordinator would be, well, let's get on the wait list. And while we're on the wait list, let's look at how we can increase this person's income through whatever eligibility options may be possible. So that's not an excuse.
And a follow-up there, Jeannie, is she says her coordinator wasn't sure about her level of involvement in helping with the process.
About helping in terms of,
like, shouldn't someone's support coordinator be helping with?
A support coordinator should be assisting you with getting your referral made for this resource. And what may end up happening is the support coordinator helps you, make the referral. It's an online referral process now. They help you get through the referral process. You get put on the rental assistance wait list. And then once we will notify the support coordinator when that person's name comes up as the next person in line to apply for the rent assistance. And then that support coordinator should be reaching back out to you saying, hey, your name's come up. You're going to probably have to submit some updated income information and things like that. And then the SREP application process will start. The support coordinator isn't necessarily required to help take you to apartment properties and visit all sorts of apartment properties. They're not, they don't necessarily have to help you with filling out apartment applications and things like that. But if you have a waiver, Medicaid waiver, there is a service called a community housing guide service that will help you with all of those things. So that's where I would start. So once you get on the once you get to the top of the SRAP wait list, if you have a waiver, one of the first things I would ask your support coordinator is help me apply for a community housing guide so they can help take me through this application process and start looking for units and apartments and applying for them. That's how that can happen. The support coordinator isn't going to be able to do everything, but they at least have to get you through the referral process. That's absolutely for sure. I wanted to also mention on the budget side of the house that, again, you don't have to have income, but it's a really good idea. The other thing is that's a really good idea to work on while you're preparing is helping that person build their credit score and improve their credit history, because most of our individuals don't have credit. They've never had to take out a loan or pay for a credit card or do anything that would involve establishing a credit history. And the issue is not qualifying for the rent assistance doesn't care about your credit score. But when you go out to apply for apartments, they care about your credit score. And so you want to make sure that you are helping that individual build a positive credit history that shows that they pay bills on time, and that they don't have any debts, or their debts are very minimal and will be paid off in the next, credit card billing cycle, that type of thing. So those are things that you can work on while you are waiting to have your name come up on the wait list. Build a budget, improve your credit score and your credit history. And as Donna and Margot have been talking about, start networking with other people who are actually working on getting into housing, so you can get familiar with the properties they're in, what they like and what they don't like, things like that. One thing I should mention, though, is if you're going to get on if you're going to submit a housing referral to get on the SRAP wait list, you will need to specify who is going to be living with you, because eligibility is based on the whole family, the whole household's income. And when I say family, I'm not necessarily talking about a nuclear family. I'm talking about the individual and whoever they're going to live with. So they will do a screening to make sure that, you and whoever you're living with, your combined income isn't going to bump you over the maximum income limit for the rental assistance program. And they need to know if you are intending to have somebody you're living with be a live-in aid. And again, just as a reminder, a live-in aid is a person, it's an accommodation or an exception to the rental assistance program's rules. Normally, if you're one individual and if you get approved for rent assistance, you're going to get a subsidy for a 1-bedroom unit to serve one individual, right? But if because of your disability, you can't benefit from a 1-bedroom apartment because you can't live without somebody being with you to assist you on a daily routine basis with your basic needs, so that you can stay in that apartment, then you can ask for an accommodation for a live-in aid. What that accommodation will do, if it's granted, if you can justify it well enough, that because of my disability, I need somebody to live with me to do the following things with me. If you can justify that, then you will, instead of being approved for a 1-bedroom subsidy for the individual, you'll get approved for a 2-bedroom subsidy. And what will happen is the live-in aid's income will not be considered when they are calculating, number one, income eligibility for the program. But number two, when they're calculating what the tenant's portion of the rent is going to be. So earlier I talked about the rental assistance. In the rental assistance program, a household usually pays 30 to 40% of its income toward the rent and utilities. That is still true, but rather than the household income being calculated as the individual's income and their aid's income, 30% of that, they're only going to look at 30% of the individual's income. So effectively, the aid can live in the unit for free as long as they are providing the needed supports for that individual to live in that unit. And as long as they are not contributing to that household, the household expenses or income in any way. So completely separate income. The live-in aid pays for their own meals and their own expenses, and the individual pays for their expenses. The individual's not subsidizing or paying for any household expenses. The live-in aid is, you have to think of the live-in aid as essentially a person who the only reason that they're there is to provide the support, to provide the supports that the person needs to live in that unit on their own.
Go ahead.
And I would say most of our friends that live in Gillian Place, they're live-in aides, like they're not like a 24/7 support. They're going to their job, they're going to school, they're doing whatever. They have this agreed, the families come up with this tenant roommate agreement, like what they are going to do, but it's not like they are that person's 24/7 aide. Most of those individuals with that kind of support need, they have waiver supports, people that come in throughout the day. I mean, I think you would, like most parents, at some point, you're not going to have a roommate very long if you think they're going to do everything for your young adult. So you want to make this relationship be a long and happy one. So we usually encourage those live-in aides. And for instance, our daughter goes home on Friday afternoon, so the live-in aide can maybe have a friend over, have a dinner, do whatever they want, just so the relationship stays healthy and positive and long-lasting.
There's a good follow-up question here. Do you need to identify a roommate before applying for SRAP or to apply for a unit? And
Yes.
You've said it, but repeat it, please.
Yes, you do. So you need to know who that's going to be. You need to know whether that person's going to be a roommate or a live-in aide. A roommate is just, they're for company. They're there to share expenses with you. They're there to, be a companion, that type of thing. A live-in aide is there to provide supports. They can also happen to be a companion, but they're there. Their purpose is to provide the supports so that the individual can live in the unit. And yes, whether it's a roommate, whether it's a live-in aide, whether it's an individual's brother or sister, whether it's, an individual's child, we do have individuals who have children. Whoever is going to live with the individual in the unit has to be a known person. So we don't take referrals where the household member's name is TBD. That's not a thing. We'll turn that referral back to you and say, come see us when you've got everybody identified. So yes. And you're going to have to also have that person identified when you apply for the unit, because the property is going to be likely doing background checks and credit checks on everybody in the household, whether they're a live-in aide or not. So they need to know who's planning to live in the unit, because they have their own rules that they have to follow in terms of accounting for all of the people who are going to be living in the unit, what their incomes are. Again, they won't consider the income of a live-in aide, but they will consider the income of a roommate. But regardless of roommate or live-in aide, they will do background checks on everybody, the apartment properties.
I know we're running long, but Jeannie, this is a really important question. From Tanya. If our child has SSI, do they use their income or is it their family's income that is used to determine the amount of the rent will be? Just say that one more time for us.
So if the individual, if your adult child has SSI, it's going to be, the rental assistance is going to be calculated on their income. Okay. Now, if you give your child routine allowances or pay for certain bills for them on a routine basis, those kinds of things, then whatever income you are using to help pay for those expenses is going to end up getting considered income to the individual. And that puts you in this real sort of negative feedback loop because if you end up contributing money to your child and that gets considered their income, then the more money you contribute to your child, the higher their their portion of the rent's going to be, and the lower the subsidy portion is going to be. So if you want to support your child financially, the best way for you to do that is going to be through a special needs trust or an ABLE account, because expenses that are paid through a special needs trust or an ABLE account, routine, regular, recurring expenses will not be considered income to the individual. So we've got lots of families who end up paying for, a person's cell phone plan, or they give them a giant gift card every month for food, those types of things. But they run that through the ABLE account, or the special needs trust, so that those recurring ongoing payments don't end up getting counted as income.
This is a lot. We've got good news. We don't have to answer it all tonight. We are here. We are your neighbors. You can reach out to us anytime. You can come on a walk. Jeannie is the most generous person with her time answering these questions. She's been holding my hand for a long time now, Jeannie. We're so grateful. So if this is overwhelming, don't worry. We got a lot of time to figure all this out, and we are not going anywhere. I really hope we see you all out somewhere soon. Absolutely.
So Donna, I'll slide my voice in here, and just I first want to say thank you to you, Jeannie, Margot. Thank you, all three of you, for this. It is a lot of information, and again, I could just sit here and listen and absorb, and try to take it in. And I am not a parent, but I've sat in this chair for 8 years and try to learn something all the time that our community will benefit from. So tonight is critically important, and just connecting to our last rodeo. And in case you all are curious, our mascot is a Mustang. That's why we do rodeos here. So, and in case anyone else is curious, that's why they're called rodeos. But our last rodeo was with an attorney out of Richmond, where we were talking about guardianship. And so talking about ABLE accounts and things like that, I love the connections that you're able to make. So maybe that is a little more relative for a family that is listening and thinking through some of these things. So as we're doing that, Cheryl, if you want to go to the next slide, we always like to, because I am an educator, we want to reflect on some of the learning that we have done this evening. So did you get your questions answered? What may have shifted in your thinking tonight? Are there some actionable steps? I think Donna has really thrown some things out there. And our Stomping Grounds is a wonderful place to do that. A recurring word here, if you did not land on it, I'm going to put it out there, is community. OSG is a wonderful place to get that community going if you do not believe you have one around you, because I love to say Davis is here, but we will be a memory at some point, hopefully a really good memory. But the community that you pull and push forward is going to be the one that supports you into actual adulthood. And so that is going to be critically important for that work that continues after Davis. And so again, really encourage you to do that if you're not already. And we know you're doing a lot. So just again, we go slow to go fast. You remember that? We go slow to go fast. So don't feel too overwhelmed tonight with all of this. But if you have other thoughts or ideas, please put them in the chat. If this is something we want to continue, I have no problems reaching out to Donna. We love her. We love OSG and, doing these kinds of things. And it is a lot. So happy to do a part 2 if that would be helpful. And throw some of those thoughts in the chat, and Cheryl and I can put our heads together and again, come up with that one brain at this point in the evening and do some more good work moving forward. But again, thank you all very much again for all of this information. Jeannie, thank you so much for that state perspective, if you will, for saying the things in the room that hopefully won't get anyone in trouble. But, we're going to raise HE double hockey sticks when someone says no, and we're going to get a yes, right?
Yes.
Love it. All right. So, and parents, thank you all so much for being here tonight. I don't want to be remiss in saying that. And I know it's a valuable time after school, after a long day, but your presence here is why we do this. So it's critically important as well. So thank you everyone for making that time this evening. Cheryl, you want to talk about our next rodeo opportunity?
Yes, I know this week we had it weekly. We're going back next week to our rodeos being the 3rd Wednesday of the month. So next month will be March 18th, same time, 6:30. And we're going to talk about transportation. We're going to have a special guest speaker from Metro Access, and we're going to talk all about that because there's a lot of questions around that. So we look forward to that. For next month, hoping you can all join us. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I am on talking points. I probably send out way too many talking points that people don't even read them anymore. But that's my work cell phone right there and my email. But just know that the talking points that I do send out are little tidbits of helpful information. And I just hope that you can take a minute or so to read what I send over. We want to support you guys, and we want to see your students be successful. So thank you, everybody who takes the time to come here and listen to all of this. I know that we seem to be going over an hour each time, and I appreciate the time that you guys give to this. Absolutely, like this series. Without you guys, we could not be successful, and the knowledge would not be spread to everybody else. So thank you again, everybody.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good night. We'll see
Thank you so
everybody
much.
soon.
Mhm.
Donna,
All right.
Margot, Jeannie, thank you
Good
so
night, good night.
much.
Thank you. Good night. See you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.